whenever he goes into a dungeon, something else happens. Like it's never just an ordinary dungeon.
Yeah.
There's always something
He's
that
like, I'm just gonna
happens.
watch. Never.
No, you're not gonna watch.
Uh, the first one is Solo Leveling Season 2.
Oh boy, man, I think everyone would agree this is the most hype show of the season, and for good reason too.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, from my perspective, it hits. I'm sure from your perspective, it hits because it is also very gorgeous.
Oh,
Like
oh
those
man.
animations and things that they do in there is just outstanding.
I haven't been hyped up by a show like this in a very long time. Mostly because I've been on hiatus. But since the last time, since the last time we've been doing shows, this is like the new hype. I think the last time it was uh Jujutsu Kaisen, and
Yeah, for
now
sure.
and
I would
now
I
we
would say
have
that probably matches
yeah
that. Solo Leveling.
yeah now yeah
It's
now we have Solo
it.
Leveling.
Oh God. I mean, it hits on so many aspects. And I think it does itself just a great service on each aspect that it does it in.
Yes.
From the fact that from the world building that they're in, and I'm talking about even from back in season 1 to season 2 now.
Hmm.
Which honestly I think this is more like core 2, not necessarily like season 2, but I mean I know there was a big separation between them, so I get why they would say that.
Yeah. As far as story, there were like between the two seasons there was no gap. So it's like
No.
they
So
just
I feel like
they
this is
just
more like core two.
yes. I was core two part two. They just needed a
Hmm.
production gap. They're like
Yeah.
we want to keep the quality up, so we're gonna pause a bit
Yeah.
and then work on it to make it as good as it needs to be.
Sure. 100%.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because, good God, it is. And again, like I said, so from the storylines to the world building, I mean, the details that they put into everything, like the only thing I could say that has, you know, that a level of like detail for that as far as like the storyline and plot points and stuff like that was maybe like slime having something akin to that. It's like you feel like there are certain parts that are kind of more of a throwaway situation, but in reality they're setting up for future things.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. I
Yes.
feel like there's not any waste in any of this. It's all, and none of it. I know that they're leaving certain things out from the manhwa. I know that,
Hmm.
but I still appreciate the pacing and the way that they take their time in going through things. Like everything he does, like is he overpowered? Yes. But everything he does has worth, has meaning, and you feel like Sung Jin Woo like pushes for it every single time. Like I when he succeeds and he kicks butt in certain senses, I'm as hyped up. I'm probably more hyped up than he is most of the time. I'm sitting there going, yes, yeah.
Yes.
I haven't felt that level since watching Don Machi.
Yes. So I would say because this is one of those shows that's of a level of most likely a 5 out of 5 for both of us. Um, I would
Oh,
like
for
to
sure.
do like a surface level chat, and then I would like to go into like a deep discussion like we usually do on shows of this caliber. Um,
Hmm.
so I would say overall, um, this show is basically um, it's it takes place in a world where there are dungeons just popping up in random places in the real world. Um, the dungeons have a certain time limit that they need to be beat before it becomes a portal between both worlds. And when that happens, then the monsters that are inside the dungeon can come out into the real world. And that has happened a couple
Hmm.
times.
Hmm.
Basically, character
Most
wise, you
notably, as far as
follow.
that goes on the island,
Oh yes,
as
and I'm
in
curious. Like they,
most notably is that the dungeon break. The most notable dungeon break has been that Jeju Island.
yes, and it like the series starts there, and then kind of like it's one of those kind of teaser things where it's like this may be where the end of the season like resolves, but let's jump to before that, and then they kind of seem like they're working their way back to the island. Um,
Hmm.
well, as far as characters go, we have Sung Jin, who is the main character. He basically starts out as as low as you can be. He ends
Hmm.
up becoming awakened, which means you have the power to go into the dungeons and basically explore slash fight through them. Um,
Well, see, he's something different
yes, after
because
the
he's after the initial like two episodes in the first season, he's something different because they have reawakened and they know of the reawakened
yes,
in their world. But the difference between that is reawakened. Yes, you gain more power when you're reawakened, but you're never supposed to gain more than like once you reawakened. That's now your new level, and
yes,
you're not supposed to go past that.
yes,
He continues to go past that.
yes, yeah. So initially, before he goes into the double dungeon where that stuff starts taking place, he's basically one of the lowest ranked. Like basically, there's basically tiers from
Oh,
S.
he's the lowest of the low.
Yeah, he's like a low E.
Yeah.
And then basically goes from E all the way up to A, and then once you pass A is basically the highest that you can get measured with the standard equipment. Once you go above
Hmm.
that, you become like an anomaly, and they have to get special equipment to measure you from there. And anything above basically what the standard equipment can measure, you become S tier, and that could be low S tier or crazy crazy high S tier. Um,
Yeah.
so basically, at the beginning of the story, Jinwoo is going through a couple of dungeons, and then he ends up going into this one dungeon with this one group where they find a second dungeon inside of it. They take the chance and go through the second part of the dungeon and basically find this super crazy boss, and about half of them don't make it out.
Oh, more than half of them.
Yes, and then he ends up being left behind and comes into a situation where he gains this crazy special power. And like you said, it's this power that basically turns his leveling system into the leveling system of a game.
Hmm.
Most other people, like you said, you get your one awakening, and every now and then there's a second awakening, and that second awakening just cements you in another. So you can go like you can awaken the first time as a C, and then the second time you awaken again as an A, and then you're just stuck at A. With Jinwoo, he's an E, and he starts gaining more powers and more levels. And even though he goes through these different incidents, he gets measured again, like right after the first double dungeon, and he's still E, and he still measures 10. But all through the first season, he starts gaining more and more and more powers. And then once we reach the second season, he basically encounters enough things to where he decides to get remeasured, and then he becomes an S, which is really really cool.
So at the beginning of season two, he is what most people believe to be a mid to high A, basically.
Yes.
After the red portal dungeon that he goes through, and then well no, it takes him going through the red portal dungeon and then going back to Demon Castle in order for him to actually by the time he leaves Demon Castle, that is when he is officially an S rank.
Yes.
What's fun though is that Igris, his main shadow right now in his army, even when he was in the red dungeon, Igris would probably be ranked as an S.
Yes.
So like as he said before in the dungeon, he's not even at that time he wasn't even as powerful as his most powerful shadow,
Yes.
which is crazy.
Yes. So, um, that's basically where the series is left off right now. Where I haven't seen the latest episode, but from the last episode that I saw, he basically got reevaluated and is getting all these different offers, and everything is kind of changing. So
So the point with I think here's the thing. We can, as far as in this world, you can measure up to A rank.
Yes.
Um, but once you hit past that point, like you said, he's an S rank. But I don't think there's actually any equipment that they have that is going to actually gauge how big of an S rank he is. It's just as the chairman said, once you are no longer capable of being identified with the equipment, you are just automatically put in S, and that's it. So like,
Yes.
even though they told him to come back, as the chairman said, it's just a formality.
Hmm.
It's not even necessary. They're not even going to actually do any further quote unquote testing on him. It's already the fact that he's just an S. And I'm going to say right now, I have to be kind of careful because of my scrolling through YouTube and stuff and a lot of shorts that I've seen. I have seen little bits and pieces about this as show as well, which intrigues me even more. I mean, there are things that
Hmm.
I could say, but I mean, I think one of the biggest thing I could probably let you chew on as far as something to think about is by the end of season 1 when he goes to the job change quest, he gets his baseline that he ends up getting is necromancer, but because of all the bonus points that he got for it, he got upgraded to shadow monarch.
Yes.
Here's the thing to consider. The title Shadow Monarch. Are there other monarchs? Something to consider.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
And something that he has said himself, Sun Jin Woo has said, he keeps referring to the system. The system, as in, even from the first one, from the first season, he mentioned, stuff like when he was facing, oh God, when he was facing those first group that wanted to kill him and Jinho in the spider dungeon or whatever.
Oh yeah, the dudes that
He
abandoned
mentioned
them.
that, yeah, yeah. He mentioned that the system wanted him strong.
Hmm.
The system felt like it needed to have him strong.
Yes.
Question being, is there a reason for that? Why does the system need him strong? Now, this also can go back to the fact that we've now seen Sun Jing Woo's dad,
Yes.
who is a beast for sure. I mean, he managed to just absolutely wipe the floor with someone who we had considered before that to be a big bad that we were worried about Jin Woo for,
Not
but
only
he
us,
just
but everybody else knew
absolutely,
about him.
yeah, and his father just absolutely wiped the freaking floor with him. He's probably lucky to be alive. His father just took pity on freaking Dungsuk.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but the fact that his dad mentioned the fact that there is a catastrophe coming, and the fact that any number, it doesn't matter how many hunters you throw at it, they will just be used against you. What does that
Okay.
sound like? What does that sound
Shadows.
like?
Shadows.
Yeah,
Okay.
interesting thought on that one.
Okay.
Now his dad's been gone for 10 years, so he has no idea what Jinwoo's been up to since that time.
Yeah.
Another interesting thought.
Okay.
So what's going to happen when his dad ends up meeting up with him and realizing what he is now? Because I think his dad would be able to figure out. Because
Oh.
you notice that in when he got reevaluated, the chairman of the Hunters Guild ends up coming in and sees him and immediately can see the aura around him and recognize him for what he was.
Yeah.
I think when you hit S rank, you're able to perceive those in higher positions. Like you can see another S rank for what they are.
I think.
You know what I mean?
I think even earlier than that, cause
Because he sees Chowhei as that.
or may,
Well, maybe when you're like an A or a B, you can kind of see a little bit. But I think that's only for Sung Jin Woo though.
okay.
I think the higher ones can only recognize the higher ones in that regards. Anyone
Well,
below that, I don't know if they can really see or recognize them for what they are. They might be able to guess, but I don't think they're going to be able to truly because okay, the dude that was scouting that was in there, he
uh,
said, "Well, that one looks like a C and that
yes.
one looks like an E."
Yes, that's what I was
But
gonna bring
here's the
up.
thing if you notice in the background when Sung Jin Woo is talking, you because he tells the dude right, he says when they're sitting in there about to get reevaluated, the guy's like, "Oh, I gotta earn more money so my ex-wife and my daughter will come back." Right?
Mm,
He goes, "Well, as long as you're not in E rank, you should be fine."
mhm.
And those scouts will actually come in and talk with you, kind of
Yes.
situation, and you can earn that money. Well, you notice when they're talking with Sung Jin Woo out in the lobby, the dude comes out and is celebrating. The scout initially said, "Oh, he's an obvious E rank." He wouldn't have been celebrating unless he was at least a D rank or higher. So I tend to think that those in the lower ranks maybe can get some sense, but they're not really accurate. It
Yeah.
isn't until you hit the higher ranks that you're like you can actually see those of the lower and be able to perceive them for what they truly are.
Yeah. It's a skill that gets sharper the stronger you become.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So,
So my thought is that when his father meets up with him, he's going to see for him for what he truly is, and I don't know if that's going to cause an issue, maybe,
yeah, because it depends. Yeah, yeah. It's like the his dad knows a lot about the world. They are the hunters
and
and the monsters.
a lot about the dungeons too, the portals,
Yes.
because that was one of his first questions was how much do you guys know about it? Like he didn't want to give any information unless he knew for sure what their level of information was.
Yeah. So it's like as far as most of the characters that we're seeing though, it's civilians, hunters, and monsters, and it's
Hmm.
like and then also whatever Jinwoo is, because he's like
Hmm.
he's a hunter, but then he has all this other extra stuff with him, so we don't really know. And
Well,
then
he's labeled as a player.
yeah, and like that one,
According to the system, he's labeled as a player.
yes, and then that one elf was like, "You're not human."
Yeah,
So it would make
but
sense
then again,
because maybe he died in that double dungeon and became something else.
I'm telling you, man, I think the monarch situation is
Yeah.
a key in that regards.
Okay.
I think he is something beyond a hunter
Yes.
and beyond a civilian and beyond a monster. I think the monarch situation is part of that, but I think we're missing probably two key levels above what is a hunter considered.
Okay. Good. 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 Okay. So
Like
I would like to start.
there's something behind the scenes pulling the strings that we're just not even aware about at this time.
Oh yes. Okay. So
Because notice whenever I was gonna say I noticed whenever he goes into a dungeon, something else happens. Like it's never just an ordinary dungeon.
yeah.
There's always something
He's
that
like, I'm just gonna
happens.
watch. Never.
No, you're not gonna watch.
uh,
It's always the double dungeon, the red gate, like something always ends up happening. And he was gonna get some information from that elf, but something stopped that elf from telling him what he wanted to know. Key information that
hmm,
was about to be divulged to him. So again,
yes.
something's behind the scenes.
Yes. So I would like to go through the dungeons and then go through the characters. So for anyone who would not like to be spoiled with the details, I would say go ahead and skip to the next show that we're talking about. Well, yeah. So, what the first dungeon that he went into was not the double dungeon, was it?
So yes, the
Okay.
first dungeon he went into that we saw him do. Now they alluded to him other dungeons he's done in the past
Yes.
during that dungeon,
Yes.
but the only one we saw him go through was the double dungeon.
Okay. So basically, other than the crack that led to the other dungeon, it seemed to be a regular dungeon. There was
Correct.
nothing special about it. The people who were stronger dispatched the monsters, and then they're about to head out until they found the other passageway.
Hmm.
The second part of that dungeon was a very cool like puzzle.
Oh yeah.
It was very interesting that he basically figured out how to get everybody out.
I think they alluded to I think because of the type of personality he is and what he's had to go through. He's when you have
Mm-hmm.
a person who is not very strong but is put into situations where he has to contend with people who are strong or is strong,
Mm-hmm.
the only thing you have available to you at that point is your brains, is your
Yes.
smarts.
Yes.
So the ability to actually be able to and see in those situations, a lot of times the biggest problem is people panic too much when they're in a situation where it's do or die. Most of those hunters have never been in a situation like yeah, they're fighting monsters and stuff like that, but they always know one they have backup and two it's at their level or their roundabouts.
Yes.
Sun Jin Woo, every dungeon he goes into is a life or death situation for him. It
Yes.
is death. It is death on the line every single time.
Yes.
So for him, he was able to enter that and take charge and command because it's just another day for him.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's death around every corner, but he deals with that on the regular.
Yeah. It's
So
like,
he was able to keep calm on that situation.
yeah, it's like regular old death or super dangerous death. It's still death.
It's still death. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm still gonna die either way.
Yeah.
So I mean that to me, I get that. So I see where he was able to really do that. But the thing about that is too is that because when since he was the only one left at the end, I think I don't know. Again, when we were talking about someone is behind the scenes pulling the strings, I feel like because he only became the player after he completed it, and he only completed it because he was the only one left at the end of it.
Mhm.
To me, it's like whoever's behind the scenes pulling the strings, that dungeon was there as a testing grounds.
Yes.
It's like who is worthy enough to complete this?
Yeah, because it's like either who is going to sacrifice themselves and let everyone out, or who's going to be left behind and wants a second chance.
Well, I mean, it was. I think the first thing you said is the more apt thing because it was the test of courage.
Yes.
You have to be courageous enough to be able to bite the bullet in that regards and sacrifice yourself for the sake of everyone else.
Yes, but with his situation, like some people just left him, so it wasn't
Yeah,
it wasn't like you go, I'll take the bullet. They're just like, I'm going to my wife and
yeah.
children.
Well, but see again, that's the test of courage because he was willing to stay behind. He almost wasn't. He
Yes.
almost wasn't. If what's her name's legs hadn't given out on her the way they did,
Hmm.
it would have been the old guy who would have stayed behind,
Yes.
not him.
Yes.
So it almost wasn't.
Okay. Yeah. 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 But yeah, as far as like a dungeon and a puzzle, out of all of the shows that we've watched that had dungeons in them, this was probably one of the scariest.
Oh, for sure. Because you just didn't know.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't that I was defeating an enemy. It was just like I was just trying. You're just trying to survive,
Yeah.
and it's like you have literally invincible enemies around you that you cannot do anything against, and who can kill you in an instant should they choose if you do something wrong.
Yeah.
So it's like how do you fight against that?
And
You know,
it's like,
that's the scary part.
yes, it is like all the instructions are riddles. So it's like
Hmm.
they're like, we gave you the we gave you the instructions, and it's like, what does praise thee mean? I don't know. So
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, so as far as the opening of the show, like that was really really cool.
Oh, it hooked you right from the get go.
Yeah. Um, let's see, what was the dungeon after that?
The dungeon after that was the key dungeon the first key dungeon he came
Oh,
across.
where he just got stomped by a Cerberus.
No, 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 no. That's the second one.
Okay.
The first one, the first key dungeon was when he faced the serpent. That was the first one he went into by himself. The first enemy he faces were the goblins, then he faces the wolves, and that's where he gets the title of wolf assassin. And then after leveling up, I think he was like he was in like the high teens I think at that point. He goes downstairs it was in the subway situation. He goes downstairs and he faces off against the serpent
That's right.
and he kills the serpent because he had increased his strength so much by literally crushing its neck with his bare hands.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. 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 It's like I remember the serpent part, but I don't remember the parts before that.
Yeah, and that was just his basics of just because that was the first time he ever leveled up.
Yeah.
He had been doing his dailies previous to that and gaining like a point here and there to use.
Dailies. He's like, I'll do that later. And it was like, fine, throw you out in the desert.
Now you didn't want to run and do your other exercises. Now you better run to survive.
And yeah, I do like the dailies because it's like the system wants him strong, and it's like you need to do these exercises or else. So yeah, so after that dungeon, then it was the key dungeon with Cerberus.
Yes.
Okay, Cerberus.
Oh God.
Cerberus shoots the shit out of him. It's just-
Oh, it did. It did. And see, to me, I feel like this also, just like with all his other fights, all his fights that he has, whether it was with Cerberus, was with the Serpent, however it was. I mean, one, I like the fact that he's not invincible. He gets the shit knocked out of him. He
oh yeah.
he he gets badly injured and all this other stuff. He's just lucky enough that he has the ability to heal as it is.
Yes.
Um, but at the same time, it shows, I think, again, his determination and his, for lack of a better word for it, term for it, like his relationship with death. Because a lot of these times, he is on death's doorstep, essentially.
Yeah.
But he still, his grit and his determination is what pushes him over. Where most
Yes.
people in his situation would just give up and say, I'm done, he perseveres, which is one thing you could really say about his personality.
One thing that like it makes me laugh, but it also frustrates me to like the nth degree is he's resourceful. Like whenever he can find a way to bring in some kind of tool to like help him out, he will bring it. So like
Yeah.
in the Cerberus fight, he had one of those stones that could like just tell players just get out of jail free card. And in one of the other dungeons, he also had another one. But this show will never let him use it. Some like either a armor knight will have some kind of hammer and just smack it out of its hand, or Cerberus will just slap him into a wall and he'll drop it. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, perseverance. It's like even without that, like being strong enough to get out of those dungeons is an amazing feat.
Oh, for sure.
But then to also bring in a tool and it gets just slapped out of your hands, I'm just like, oh, this poor guy. I'm like,
Understand.
Joe, please stop doing this to him. But it's also very, very funny.
Oh, for we did miss though. I will say before the demon gate dungeon,
Mm.
he did go to that one dungeon where he faced off against the giant spider. That was before the demon gate.
Ah, yes, where those dudes just left them so then they could mine all those
Yeah,
crystals. Dang.
yeah. Him and Junhee
Yeah, it's that's basically also where he like got the target up, like got a really big target on his back.
started to.
Oh, because in that where the S rank is after him now.
Yeah, but I mean, he's gotten a big target on his back for many reasons.
Yeah,
That,
I
that's just
guess.
the that was just the starting point of when he actually became a known threat.
Okay. So I would say everything that he was doing before that, people were suspicious about him. And then
I
that was
don't
the
even think
first
he
target
was
on
on
his back.
anyone's radar at that point in time. He wasn't
Well,
on
that was the
anyone's
one.
radar at that point because he was still believed to be an E rank. The only reason that he was even started to like at the double dungeon, they were like, "Are you reawakened because you came back?" But he never got he when he got reassessed, he was still an E rank.
Yes.
So after that, he was just pushed to the side.
So I would say the people who are in the know, who are like scouting, there's a lot of scouts that were like, wait a minute, he survived this, he survived that. They're like, something's up.
But yeah, the spider dungeon is what started that.
Yes.
But it wasn't until he started that, and then, well, I mean, it wasn't even until after the assassin that he faced that was part of the guild, the one that
Uh,
had the cloaking, that he got the cloaking ability from. Then other guilds were like, "Wait, he survived all these things, and he's still how? We got to go check this guy out."
okay.
That's when they started like scouting him.
Okay. So maybe it wasn't until like the third or fourth event that started
It was
happening.
the third. It was the third event that they started scouting him.
Oh, okay. Cool. Cool. Cool.
So
But yeah. What once the dude's brother was like, cancel my appointments. I'm taking a
Yeah,
plane right now. I was like, oh no.
yeah,
And then the dude was like, you can't cancel this one appointment. And he's like, oh, you're lucky. I'm like,
yeah.
when is he coming back? And then he kind of just showed up like without any warning. Just like drove up in the car. And he's
Hmm.
like, "Where's the? Where is he?" And I'm like, "I didn't even know you were coming here today." Okay. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah. So after the other dungeon where he got left in, and then he went to the Cerberus one. Was that when they started doing the dungeons on their own, or did he go into another one before that?
No, it was after the dungeon one that he went to do it on his own.
Okay. So
After the demons dungeon, then he went to start. He went with Jinho on doing C rank dungeons,
yes. So yeah. So he's basically started farming all those dungeons, and then
and it was after that that he went to the job quest.
job quest. Which is that one again?
That was in episode 11 and 12. That was at the very end of the first season. The job change quest dungeon, where he became a Shadow Monarch.
That's not part of the. That wasn't after Cerberus.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You were saying after Cerberus, where I was like, it was he did Cerberus, then he did the grind with the multiple dungeons that he was doing. And then it was after that is when he did the job change.
Which is back in the Cerberus dungeon, but it was just the other levels of it.
Nope.
No.
No, no. He got the job. He got the job change key because he did. It was during his leveling up, during the multiple dungeons
Mm-hmm.
that he was grinding in, where a
Mm-hmm.
notification popped up saying job change quest available. Do you accept? And he just left it there because he didn't want to do it right then and there. And it
Yes.
wasn't until after he left, and I remember he sold those dungeons that the Jinho had
Yes.
reserved for him to the guild,
Yeah, that was
that
nice.
he after he left one of the dungeons when he was doing the grind, he asked Jinho what their schedule was like because he wanted to do the job change quest, but he wanted to see what time he had available to do that in. So he sold those other dungeons because he wanted to go do the job change quest, but he didn't want to just cancel the dungeons and miss out on all that money. So he sold the dungeons off
Yes.
for exorbitant fee, and then
Yes.
left to do the job change quest,
Okay. So
and that ended the first season.
I want to split in my head. There's a dungeon that has 100 levels that he went up to, and then
That's the demon. That's the demon's gate.
okay, and then
So that was where he faced Cerberus,
okay, and he
and then that's where he went back to in the second season so
after
far.
the job quest.
Yeah, after the job
Okay,
quest,
so
he
the
became Shadow Monarch before he did that.
okay, so in the job quest one, yes, that makes sense. In the job quest one, what all was that dungeon? I know it ended with a
That's where
the
he
guy.
faced. That's where he faced Egris.
Yes, but was it just that part of it?
So it was a hallway he entered into that told him he couldn't use potions and or utilize the store or a teleportation stone,
Hmm.
and then it was knights, mages, archers, and such that he was facing on his way to the throne room where Egris was.
Okay, okay, so that all of that just encompassed the.
Yeah,
Okay, cool, 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 cool.
the job change quest. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So, um, Igris is the coolest knight I've.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
I
god.
mean, when Jinwoo put away his weapons, seeing Egris stick his sword into the ground and just being, he doesn't say anything, but in my mind I'm thinking, he sees Jinho, or yeah, Jinwoo put away his weapons. He's like, oh, is that how we're gonna play? Sticks his sword into the ground, throws his own like backup weapons he had to the side. He's like, all right, we'll go hands. That's
Yeah.
that's fine. We can do that.
Yes. With that, it was cool to see him like realize that he had to take out the mages first. I kind of feel like it took a while for him to figure that out.
Oh, it did. I think at that point, though, I mean, you got to give the guy credit. He's been extremely flustered. He was tired. He was hurt. I mean, yeah, he'd
He
been
just
healed, but
finished battling.
yeah, at the same time, he'd been healed. But here's the thing: even though you're healed, the mental scarring of being hurt is still there.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like in his fight with Cerberus, he had like lost an arm, but it's not like, yeah, and he got it healed back, but the feeling and his brain of going, I lost an arm, is still there.
Yeah.
It's still very much a part of him.
Yeah.
That doesn't go away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like all these different dungeons. It's like completely different experiences. Like comparing the dungeons in this show
Hmm.
to like um like dungeon. It's like all the dungeons in the show dungeon kind of felt similar. They're like
Hmm.
themed differently, but they're basically kind of all just caves. This show, it's like one's in a city, another one's in a cave, another one's a castle. It's like one's just a long
Hmm.
hallway to a throne room. It's the variety of the dungeons. One is a forest. Like um
Hmm.
it's I'm
It
wondering.
keeps it fresh.
Yes. And I'm wondering like what's going to happen to future shows when they do dungeons. Like the bar is being
Who
pushed.
knows?
Like yeah, the bar is being pushed with this show.
Oh, 100%.
So after the job change quest, and he gets the Shadow Army, which is really 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 cool.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
yeah, I was like, how soon is he gonna use these guys? Immediately.
I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, come on.
Oh, and it's really really cool that like one thing that you said he he always pushes forward. Um,
Hmm.
I love the fact that every time he gets a new shiny toy, he's like immediately ready to use it. And he's like, "Oh, anybody I can
Hmm.
kill, I can just add to my army real quick." And I'm like, "Dude, how many people you gonna have in your army?" um, and
See, I knew from the beginning when that even before I knew all the other things I know now, I knew from the beginning when I saw him have that power. I was like, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, monsters, he can bring monsters back that he kills." And I'm like, "Wait a sec. On previous occasions, we killed people. Can we bring them back?" And then it was the beginning of season 2 that went, "Oh, by the way, that question you had, let's answer that right now.
yeah,
Let's bring a person back."
yeah. And yeah, as far as like bringing people back, it's interesting who he can bring back and who he can't. Like
Hmm.
he gets 3 tries, and with Igris, it was poetic the way he like
Oh, 100%.
convinced him.
And he had to.
Yeah,
I don't think here's the thing. I don't think it's level based. I don't think it's a matter of who's stronger because if that's the case, he never would have gotten Egris.
yeah,
I think it's a he's the shadow monarch. If you're a monarch, you're a king or queen, you're a ruler. You have to have that level of leadership, charisma, just leader ability, raw power, just your and I think that, like we said before, because of his perseverance, his stick to itiveness in that sense, I think when he did his little speech that he did, I think that's really what got Egris to come out.
yeah,
And I think that's the exact reason why the elf that he faced later on didn't,
yeah. And it's
because the elf had nothing but disdain for him. He wanted, especially even in his last moments, he wanted to kill him. He wanted to kill him. He didn't want to. So the fact that he tried to resurrect him after that, I think is like, you're not getting him.
yeah.
I'm like, it would have been cool to get him, but I'm like, you're not getting him.
I feel like if somehow he was able to get him, if he would turn on him immediately, he would
Oh,
he
probably.
would come out and be like, shing, and just start fighting them right
Yeah,
away.
100%. 100%. Are you kidding me? 100%.
Yeah. Okay. So after that dungeon where he gains the necromancer powers, um, he goes to because there's 2 more dungeons after that, right? There's the demon tower, and then there's the red gate, right?
So the Red Gate came first. Red Gate first. That was what started
Okay.
season 2, and
Okay.
then that was the first 2 episodes of season 2. Which, by the way, they did. The reason why it was 2 episodes like that is because they showed that in the movie theaters.
Okay.
That's why at the end of season 2 felt so like distinct, like that was the end point of that,
Mm-hmm.
because that was what was those first 2 episodes were shown back to back as a movie in movie theaters.
Okay. I'm on that topic of like doing like a couple episode feature and putting it in the movies. I don't know if I'm a fan of that. Ever since Dragon Ball Super,
I'm o- I'm okay with it.
Like,
I'm okay with it if it feels. See, I think here's the thing. Solo leveling, it depends upon what it is. Solo leveling, it's very where they ended it. It felt succinctly like an end point. Dragon Ball, that stuff goes on and on and on and on and on and on. I don't ever feel like there's necessarily like an end per se when it comes to that. We just kind of either subdued or finished off whatever threat we currently had at that moment. So, I'm okay with it. I mean, I didn't. Did I go out and see it? No, because I'm like, why would I want to go out and see it if I could just wait until it releases? If I was, I was tempted. Don't get me wrong. I was tempted to be like, oh, I just got to go see it kind of situation. But I was like, I can wait.
yes. So that's basically my my question. It's like, how do you do that to where it's like where I will go to the theater to see it? And I think it just has to be something different. It just has to be like a special thing, like a special story that doesn't
Hmm.
have to that doesn't get repeated in the series. I don't know a way to pull it off to where you kind of go over the same thing twice. Because with Dragon Ball Super, they did two or three movies that were like the first nine episodes of the season, and it was
Hmm.
just the same thing. Maybe they plugged in a couple of scenes here and there, and to me, if I would have saw all three movies and then started the series, I feel like those first nine episodes would have been a waste of my time.
Hmm.
Um, and then,
I would say this: as long as you know that they are the episodes themselves, I think that's fine. Don't give us a quote unquote movie and then just have it be the first couple episodes and then go, oh, by the way, here's the series. Because then, yes, you go into it thinking, oh, I get even more. And you're like, no, this is the same thing I've already seen. Because if I know that it's the episodes from the get go, I can, one, make that decision on whether or not I want to watch it in a movie theater or not. And two, if I do watch it in a movie theater, then when the series comes out, I can wait and not have to just immediately go to watch it and be like, well, I've already seen the episodes, at least for now. I don't need to worry about it until, this date. So it's just basically extending the release for me.
yes, yeah, I would say
But those, I think the thing is originally the Dragon Ball movies did not specifically, to my knowledge, say that they were going to be from the episodes of the series, at least not from the
yeah,
beginning.
yeah, they were like,
That's the problem I have.
I don't know if they were like non-canon or adjacently canon, but they were like
Hmm.
legends,
Yeah,
like Bardock, like Goku's dad. It's like he is
yeah.
not involved in any of the series, but this story is related, but not really. It's
Hmm.
canon, but it's not directly related to the series. Those types of things work the best. So I would say you can't blend it. I haven't figured out a way where you can blend it. But I would say it's either has to be a adjacently canon thing or say it's exactly the first two episodes, and if you want to watch them early, here you go, and then you can wait, or you
Yeah.
can wait.
Or if not,
I would say
then
that's the
you can
best way to
wait.
do it. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. Cool.
100%.
Yes. So after the red dungeon, he goes into the the demon tower again. Um.
Hmm. So this time, because here's the thing, and when he first went into the Demon Tower in the beginning, he even mentions he was only like a level 20 or something like that,
Mhm.
somewhere around there. And he didn't even get into the actual castle,
Yeah.
the tower.
Yeah.
He only was at the door, and Cerberus stopped him at the door. Here's the thing, too. It's an S rank dungeon, but that doesn't mean that all the enemies in there are S rank, but it does mean that they're higher ranked than they would normally be. So he probably faced Cerberus, who at that point was probably like an A rank monster when he was still
Mhm.
like C rank, which is
Yeah.
why he had such a hard time with it.
Yes.
Going into it when he did after that, he was at least a high A, so
Mhm.
he was probably closer to where he needed to be in order to actually clear it. But the fact that he has his shadows on top of that, that's the reason why it was almost a yawn fest for him going through.
Yeah.
Because the bosses on those levels are probably closer to S rank,
Mhm.
but the other enemies probably range to like low to high A rank.
Mhm.
So he was right on par with what he needed to, and the shadows just put him over.
Yes. That big boss with the club.
Oh, Yeah,
He's like, how does a big guy be so nimble? I'm like, yeah, really? He's just like, I'm like, that's the fastest boss that I've ever seen.
100%.
Yeah. Um, it's this show is like just pushing dungeons like just beyond what they've ever been. It's
And they're all interesting. They're all interesting.
yeah,
Every time he enters one, I'm like, what are we gonna do next? What's gonna be the thing here? What's the new thing that's going to happen here?
yeah. So yeah. So after that dungeon he's
He gets
out.
himself reassessed.
Yes, he gets himself reassessed, and then he turns down all of the job offers, and then
Hmm.
he's going for is he going for money or also to be sneaky? I can't.
So here's the thing. He realizes after he went through all 75 floors, at least up to the 7 where he's at, 75 in the demon dungeon, that in order for him to easily go all the way to 100, he needs to have better gear.
Yes, and more food.
His idea is like I'm not power wise myself I'm okay, but in order to make sure that I'm not going to struggle for the rest of this and able to clear it the next time I go in, I need to make sure I am fully prepared. So he went looking online for any equipment that he can use because here's the thing, he has that sphere, but it doesn't work for him.
Hmm.
So it's not equipment per se that he can use. He could give it to his mages, but his mages aren't going to be out all the time. So it's not of a case of like it could work, but it's not necessarily the best for him. So he's thinking, what's going to work for me? So his idea is like I can sell the sphere to get money in order to get the equipment that would work better for me. But if I just go ahead and sell the sphere, considering everything I'm seeing online is only giving a 20 to 30% buff increase to any of people's like stats or anything, and mine doubles your magic, if I just all of a sudden sell this without ever having officially been in an A rank dungeon, someone's gonna get suspicious on how I got
Yeah.
this. So he's like, let me figure out a way. Because here's the thing, he could wait until he's officially been deemed an S rank, and then he could just go into these dungeons anyways. But he wants to cure his mom as soon as possible.
Yes.
He doesn't want to wait.
Yes.
He's not a man who's just going to sit around and not do something. He's going to act as much as he possibly can, especially when it comes to his family.
Yes.
So he's like, what's the best way I can do this? And then what lo and behold happens is he sees a notice for a job offer to be a miner for A rank dungeons. And he was like, ah, I could do that. At least that way, if I go in there and as I am right now as a quote unquote E rank, at least that way when I come out, I could just be like, well, I was in an A rank dungeon. I just happened to come across this.
Yes. Okay.
So less chance for him to get seen or questioned in that regards. And then, of course, he gets the idea is he once he feels the power coming from inside the dungeon from the boss, he's like, I kind of want to know what's going on. I want to see it for myself. He's like, I haven't faced anyone that powerful. He's like,
It's like
or at least, I think he faced someone who was that powerful when he faced the ice elf.
yes.
But since he's leveled up since then, he hasn't faced anybody again like that. So
Yes.
now he's like, well, now I'm even stronger. Do I even need Egress and the other ones, or can I handle this
Yeah.
by myself?
Yeah. And he's like, and since I'm here and it is lunch break.
Yeah, they would mind if I just poked my head in just to see, would they?
Yeah. And then right where I ended, she's like, 100's like, hey, what are you doing over here?
Oh, that hunter, yeah.
And I'm like,
She is going to be interesting.
yeah.
I will say this: they've shown her a couple times, and I don't know if they're kind of explain it at least in the next episode a little bit. But to get the idea, I've seen some other people reacting to it. They don't understand quite the way her nose works and the reason why she's always covering her nose. When she awakened, the thing is when she awakened and others around her are awakened, apparently though, you become awakened when you have like the magicules inside of you because they that's what they use to see how powerful you are is how much magicules you have inside you. For her, the magicules themselves have a smell, and it smells bad.
Hmm.
So other hunters besides herself have a smell to them, and she has a hard time being around other hunters because of that.
Okay, so that's kind of why she could sense him more than everybody else could.
I wouldn't necessarily say that's the reason why,
Okay.
but I will say that at least because you've seen her in the first series or in the first season, um, when she was in the helicopter going to Jeju Island with all the other hunters, she was covering her nose. It's because she's in a helicopter surrounded by other hunters. So it
Mm-hmm.
has a smell to her, so she's having to cover her nose. Same reason why when she was in the dungeon with all the other ones and she was just kind of on standby, she still had her nose covered the entire time. You saw that before he went into the dungeon as a miner,
Mm-hmm.
that she was covering her nose too. She just hunters and the magic around them just have a smell to her that just smells bad.
Interesting. Okay.
They
It's like I.
kind of, like I said, in the next episode you're gonna watch, they kind of explain that, but I don't think they do because those explaining it aren't people who necessarily know her. They just kind of see her, so they kind of make a mention of that, but it's kind of left a little bit ambiguous. But that's what I gather from it.
Okay. Because it's like this whole time I didn't notice her covering her nose, and now I'm gonna see it all the time now.
Hmm. Oh, you'll see it in the very beginning of the episode when you watch the next one.
Yeah.
Because when that's when the ending of the episode, she when before he turns around, she was covering her nose like this
Okay.
with the cloth that she always carries around with her.
Which is interesting because it's like the miners that get applied to that type of job. I'm like,
Hmm.
would they? I guess be high enough to be on her radar? I'm like, can civilians go into those dungeons and mine, or do you have to be a hunter?
I think, well, I don't think you have to be a hunter. I think they think of you a little bit better if you are a hunter, only
Hmm.
because they know you can handle yourself and that you have the physicality to be able to do what they need to do. I think that's the reason why they were okay with him just being an E rank, why they were, I guess, more at least accepting of the fact that he was an E rank because he's like, oh, you're at least a hunter. You're at least a hunter,
Hmm.
and at least you have the physicality to do the work that we require you to do.
Okay.
So,
He's in there just like goosh, 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 and they're like, "Is he really eating?"
best goddamn miner they've ever had.
Cool. All right, so now let's go into characters because there's some interesting there's some very interesting characters in this show. Um,
Here's the thing, though. There are some very interesting characters, but I don't feel. I think we focus, and we focus a lot on Sung Jin Woo. There have been a lot of characters, but we don't really give them a lot of airtime.
hmm,
I mean, Chohee, the Hunters Guild main guy, the uh, Gon, or the chairman of the Hunters Association. Like, we've seen all these characters, but they've all been like little snippets, little snippet, little
yes.
snippet, little snippet, little snippet. So I mean, I feel like in this season, Chohee is going to have more of a role, but that's only because she's going to be more next to Sung Jin Woo that we're going to be following along anyways. I mean, even Sung Jin Woo's sister, yeah, she's been in a few things and you've seen her a couple times, but she really hasn't done a lot. I mean, even the friend of Sung Jin Woo's sister that came along with him to the Red Dungeon, like she was there, but like she kind of was in the background. I think he kind of just oh, I'll protect you, and then after that, we really don't see her all that
Okay.
much.
So
So I mean, I don't know.
so it seems like the show is set up in the sense of like I guess older anime where there was a main character and then everybody else was a side character instead
Yeah,
of having like a group of main characters.
I
Okay.
agree. Yeah, 100%. I don't necessarily think
Yeah.
I would consider any of them else main characters. I think going forward, we'll see more of some of them, which is why they were introduced so early on,
Hmm.
is because they're going to be becoming key members going forward, but it's not like they were integral from the beginning. Like most of the parts that happened from the beginning, we could have skipped out on most of them and only really interacted with them when Sung Jin Woo interacted with them. But we got a little snippet every now and then with those, and it wasn't. I mean, it was nice, but it wasn't necessarily necessary. I feel like.
That's interesting. But yeah, I'd say out of the side characters, who do you think is like the most interesting. I have two off the top of my head, and that's his sister's friend or sister's classmate, and then the older guy.
I don't necessarily know if I would consider her the sister's friend to be interesting. I mean, I guess I could see that, but I think honestly, to me, the more interesting ones out of them, I mean, I'd probably say Egris.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, his fight was so iconic, and he's just such a presence whenever he's on the field. I think
yeah, and even in the
that's one
ice,
of the biggest things. I think.
yeah, even in the ice dungeon when basically in the ice dungeon he had his sword the whole time, and and Jinwoo was
Yeah,
like, oh, if he didn't put down his sword, I wouldn't have made it out of
yeah,
that dungeon.
I would be dead.
Yeah,
No, I'd be dead. So Egris, I think, would be biggest for me. If we're just talking about side characters, and any other one, yeah, maybe the chairman.
okay. Oh yeah.
But see, at the same time, I think those are the ones we've had the most interactions with.
Hmm.
So I think it's almost unfair to say that those are the most interesting, only because those are we've just had more interaction with them.
Yeah.
So of course they're going to be more interesting. We know more about them. We've seen more about them. The fact
Okay.
that Sung Jin Woo has as much respect for the chairman as he does. Granted, the only other one, if I had to pick three characters, side characters, the only other one that I would say would be interesting would be Jinho.
Oh, the one who's trying to take over the guild.
Mhm.
Okay.
He'd be the only other one. I root for him. I mean, I feel bad for him with his family situation.
Yeah.
His brother being an absolute trash to him. His dad kind of only sort of caring about him,
Yeah.
kind of thing. You know, so really, Jin Woo is like the only one who actually seems like he actually gives a crap about him.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I were to pick a third. The dude that's hanging out with the chairman.
Oh, him? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll say
Yeah, we've seen him a decent amount.
yeah. So I would say let's go through them pretty quickly. Good, and then yeah, we can call this show excellent.
Sure.
Everybody should watch this. If
100%.
it's a little violent,
Oh, yeah. The moral ambiguity in this show is it comes into question a lot.
yes. Okay. So I pick the sister's classmate because I knew she was eventually going to get into a dungeon like 100% because of the way that they were showing her. Like she's asking
Mm.
questions about the dungeon. She's asking her classmate about her brother being in a dungeon, and then like half a series later, she's in a dungeon. So I'm like, I knew that from the get go, but because of the relationship that she has with the two characters, I feel like something might happen to her, so I'm worried for her.
Here's the thing. Her character, and the only reason why I didn't put her up there is I feel like she's only there as a placeholder for the audience. Like she does
Interesting.
ask the questions, but she asks the questions that we as the audience would have asked or wanted to know. Like she went into the
Okay.
dungeon. Like we know Sung Jin Woo has experience. He has the knowledge because he's done this. He's done this for so long as he has. And when they went into the red dungeon, her immediate question was, "What's going on? What's happening?" He knew, but she had to be there to ask the questions to make it feel natural
Hmm.
because she didn't know because she's so new. So basically, she was a stand-in for
Yeah,
us.
she's the audience avatar. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Because it does make sense because for her, like her only experience is like just standing outside of dungeons.
Yeah.
And then the first time she actually goes in, everything's going haywire. And she's like, is this normal? And
Hmm.
he's like, no. And he's like, is this normal? No. And he's like, y'all stay over here. I'll be back. And she's like, yeah. So
Yeah.
that makes
Basically.
perfect sense. And then even other hunters are like, I've never seen this before. So,
Oh yeah, because again, she asked the question to the other hunter,
yeah.
"Is this normal?" And she's like, "Are you kidding me? I wouldn't be a hunter if this was normal."
Yeah. Uh, okay. That makes sense. Um, I would say the older hunter that basically felt really bad for abandoning or I guess leaving
Oh yeah, yeah,
behind
yeah,
the main character because he's
yeah.
like I wanted to stay I wanted to stay behind
He did.
and he's like I couldn't because I you weren't able to help the girl out and the only way for her to get out is for me to take her. So for him to like also like bring that up when they meet again, it's really cool.
Well, it showed he was very honorable and very he kind of felt like more of like a grandfather figure.
Yeah, and then even like
So I could see that.
I was like even the interactions that he had with the people at his dojo, like it's just I don't know. It's like
It showed what type of character he had.
yes,
100%.
yeah, and I was like, oh god, this guy's really cool. I think he's gonna die soon. In the very next
I
dungeon, more
mean, in
trouble.
this
And I'm like,
series,
no.
see, here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? The thing I probably liked most about this series is that you don't know. The
Yeah,
way they set up the very first episode, anyone can die.
yeah,
You don't know. So it makes the stakes that much higher.
yeah. Oh, and then even after the dungeon, even though they made it out, and the guy started questioning, he's like, "Who defeated the thing?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I did. I'm a swordsman."
Hmm.
Just covering for him. Even I was like, "God, this dude's so cool." So,
A lot of people do that though, if you really think about it. A lot of people will cover for Sung Jin Woo because they see him do these things. They don't fully understand, but they know since he's not the one to accept the credit for it because that's not why he's doing this. So
yes.
because that's not why he's doing this, he no one wants to push it on him.
Hmm.
They just go, "Okay, we'll just move past it."
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like I wouldn't say notorious, but he's known for being that like that rookie level E guy that's trying his hardest. And I'm curious like
Hmm.
how many people like how many hunters actually know of him, and then to see him in his current state, and they're like, huh. So yeah,
Most people don't recognize him in his current state.
yeah. So
Even the chairman, when he was looking at his records, saw the picture of him and basically said he looks like a completely different person, and he does.
yes. So it's also interesting whenever like people push him for answers, and he like turns around and gives them that back off look, and I'm
Hmm.
like, okay.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, and then my third character is the guy that's hanging out with the chairman. Was he
Hmm.
partnered with that serial killer hunter dude?
No,
Okay,
they I think they work together, and in the capacity that even the chairman of that company worked together with him. They all were in the part of the
okay.
same organization, and he knew
Hmm.
of him. He just didn't know to what extent that dude was demented.
Okay, because I'm like that dude, the serial killer dude, was with another hunter, and they were like going to places together. That wasn't the dude that was with the chairman.
I don't think so. Because I think the dude that was with the chairman came in after the fact to go to. Yeah, I don't think he was necessarily with him at that
Okay,
time.
so where did that guy go?
The dude that was with the serial
Yeah,
killer? I don't remember a dude with a serial killer.
I feel like they were partnered up, or maybe they just had a like they
Oh
spoke to
no!
each
You
other.
know what? You know what? They were because during his first reassessment back
Yes,
when episode 2 or 3, he was in the hospital room with him.
yes. Okay. So yeah. Once that guy was gone, now he's just hanging out with the. I keep wanting to say
I mean,
emperor.
he was already hanging out with the chairman before
Yeah,
that because him and the chairman had a sparring match.
and the
And like,
chairman kind of like destroyed half the dojo, and the show's like all sly, trying to be like, look at how strong he is. Let me pan over real quick.
yeah, yeah. Again, even you got to remember when Sung Jin Woo looked at him, he said that the chairman, even though he was retired and over 80 years old, he still held as much power as Sung Jin Woo was at that time.
Yeah,
And the chairman even said if the healers could actually make it to where he would be able to move the way he wanted to, he would still be out there fighting.
yeah.
He said if he was just 10 years younger, so he's saying if he was only in his 70s, he could still be out there fighting.
Man.
Chairman's impressive. Chairman's an,
Man.
that's why I said he was one of mine.
Yeah.
He's an impressive motherfucker.
Okay. Good. Well, that's a good segue. So let's go on to the chairman.
I I mean, he is what can I say about him, man? He is wise, he's compassionate. I mean, he looks at the association as a preventative measure to keep the other guilds in line. And he was the first S rank hunter in that nation.
Okay, makes sense for the age.
He was the first. So, I mean, if his body was still able to let him, like I said, he'd be out there fighting along with everyone else.
Yeah, I vote.
And
I vote a chairman movie.
I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't be mad at it, honestly. See him back in his prime. Maybe they'll do a flashback
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, that'd be cool. Okay, yeah, it's the chairman's pretty cool. What was one of the other ones?
Junhee,
Yes.
the little the his as most people have called him, the little golden retriever of a guy.
And every time you see him, he has some new suit of armor.
Yeah, new piece, new suit, something like that. He's just as many people have said, he's such a good boy. He's just such a good boy. You feel for him. He's. I know Sung Jin Woo agreed to it, but he really is the younger brother to Sung Jin Woo. He
Yeah.
really is like his little brother, and you see that relationship between the two of them. Like even when they were grinding out in those dungeons, he would he would be mining away while Sung Jin Woo was killing all the other bad guys, and he's just like, all right, cool. And he would run away from a monster. Sanjay would come in, clobber the monster. He was looking out for him. He's trying to help him. He's trying to protect him. I mean, yeah, it works out in his favor, but at the same time, it's endearing to see the two of them. And it really, I think, his presence is something that kind of grounds Sung Jin Woo and keeps him from going too far maybe with his power
Mhm.
because Sung Jin Woo has such a potential to go so far with his abilities and power to, for back of lack of better term, the dark side.
I see that. Um, and even in like the whole part where they were grinding and everything, once he got his um necromancer army, like then they just started doing the mining. Sunju was like, "Can I mine some too?" And
Can I just pick up Essence Stone? And then the shadow comes over and goes, here you go, you want the Essence Stones? I'll give them to you.
um, so I'm wondering if that's like the beginning of like his kind of turn because it's like,
I don't know. I think the people around him are going to, like I said, I think he needs them, even though he doesn't need them to fight. I think he needs them to keep him grounded. So we'll see.
okay. And then who was the last person?
Oh, Igris.
Oh yes,
I mean, I think we've already discussed Igris in length at this point. He's just such a cool character.
yeah,
The way he carries himself, his knightly aura and responsibility. I mean, he oozes like chivalry and like just a knight demeanor kind of situation.
yeah,
He doesn't even have to say anything, and you just know what he's thinking or what he's doing.
yeah,
And the loyalty that he has portrayed to Sung Jin Woo is just outstanding.
yeah. I'm just imagining the stuff that he's been doing. I was like, God, Aegis is so
Oh yeah,
cool.
oh yeah, he is freaking awesome. I love Igris.
Oh, let's flip to a useful but like kind of broken member of his shadow army team. So in the red dungeon, he actually revived a human.
Kim.
Hmm?
His name, the human's name was Kim.
Oh, okay, yes. And it's weird because that guy showed a dark side like immediately.
Here again, you got to think about it. It's the personality. It's human nature,
Mm-hmm.
right? He split the teams personally, and what did he do? He kept all the high level people with him, and kept all the low level people by themselves
Yes.
because he considered them dead weight and he considered them useless. Then what ended up happening? His team dies, except for him. And all the low level people that he thought would have died didn't. So basically, feeling like he failed his team, he tried to shift blame to make himself feel better, thinking that it wasn't his fault that his team died, but it was Sung Jin Woo's fault for not providing, even though he's the one who made that decision. He just kind of glossed over that
Yeah.
fact. The interesting thing about that though is if you notice during the fight when he's charging the other that were at that camp, Sung Jin Woo kicks him and pushes him aside, and his sword that he had been carrying at that time falls near Sung Jin Woo while Kim goes flying off in another direction. Later, when the fight's happening, where's that sword? Right next to Kim. What? So what happened? Sung Jin Woo kicked it over to him because he knew when he woke up he was going to want to charge him. And at that point, Sung Jin Woo had already made the mental decision saying, if in my current power, even with Igris, this was going to be a highly difficult battle that he wasn't sure he was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he needed reinforcements. And then when he killed Kim, or actually Igris killed Kim, what did Kim say? You knew this was going to happen, didn't you? And Sung Jin Woo didn't say anything because he did. I mean, it was Kim's decision to do that, but he kind of laid the groundwork to go. Here you go for it. It's an interesting moral quandary when it comes to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's even why, after the fact, he had to reflect while he was washing himself in the bathroom before he went to eat with his sister. He was reflecting, going, I've killed three. This is the third time now. And that's because, I mean, yeah, he killed more than three people, but this is the third time that he actually made that decision
Mm.
of, I'm going to kill somebody.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. I'd say the initial kill was kind of led on by the system because it was like, here's a quest you can't deny because I
yeah.
need you for some
But
reason.
it's still something he had to come to terms with because he had to kill them.
Yeah. So yeah. So once he's killed Kim, he brings him back as Iron,
Iron, yeah.
and
And I love him so much more as
yeah,
Iron.
when he used the big hammer, it was like gadoosh to the elf, and he's like, okay, cool, we're done. And he's like gadoosh, 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 and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, Iron, are you okay? And he's like, huh? And I'm like, oh, okay.
Even better was is when after that happened and Jinwoo scolded him, he uh he turned over to Igris like he was like, "Hey, you tell him I was justified doing that." And Igris just turned around like, "I ain't talking to you." It's just
Don't
like you pull me into this.
this is all you.
So then Iron had to go look to the mages and go, "Yeah," and the mages like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Oh yeah, we did it, woo!"
It's, yeah, the show is very, very good.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what's gonna happen next. It's like
Oh, you gonna like this next one?
it's it's one of those things where it's like there's the island still, and like they did another scout to the island, and they're like ants can fly now, and they're like drop it in the ocean, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about the. It's like it's one of those things where it's like, are the monsters on the island evolving because they're outside of the dungeon, or do they evolve in the dungeon and you just catch them at their current level?
Don't know.
So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.